Detail. The Starry Sky, by Zane_. Novel. Fantasy. Views. 10.9k. Power Stones. Hashtag action, hashtag adventure, hashtag romance, hashtag magic, hashtag harem. In an age where gods slumber and demons hunger for rebirth, the world still bears the scars of a war that nearly devoured creation. From the bloodline of dragons and the grace of the divine, a child is born, Draziel Estella Amethystis, heir to the Amethystis dynasty and destined to shake the heavens themselves. Arrogant, battle-hungry, and brilliant, Draziel carries the legacy of his ancestors, and something far greater, the dormant power of the stars. But peace is fragile, shadows stir beneath ancient seals, saints rise as vessels of divine beings, and forgotten beasts awaken. As realms collide and destiny unfolds, Draziel's path will forge a legend that transcends the mortal and divine alike. From royal courts to celestial wars, from rivalries to forbidden bonds, his roar will echo through eternity. This is the tale of the stellar dragon, the one who will conquer the heavens and claim the starry sky itself. More. 14 chapters updated. Latest update 6 months ago. Reviews. 1. More. O'Shane_Thompson_9433. 6 months ago. Should be long story and family history, but is excellent to read. 1. Rate this book. Chapter 1. Chapter 1, A World in Flames. It was the mythical age. Demons of low ranking and devils of high ranking were roaming the earth causing chaos and destruction. The world was in peril, kingdoms falling, cities burning and villages slaughtered. The earth realm was fighting a losing battle, due to the fact that demons and devils can only be killed by divine magic, which is rare amongst all races that inhabit the earth realm. However, there were 7 people in the Holy Empire who were vessels that housed divine beings of immense power. They are known as saints and could wield divine magic. But that alone couldn't extinguish the invaders. The saints were only fragile humans whose bodies couldn't handle the power of the divine entities. However, humans weren't the only ones driving back the demons of the Abyssal realm. Fairies and elves were forced to join the fray with their domains being at risk of destruction. Beastmen joined the fight and dragonians, the apex race of the human realm, descended from the mountains to assist the Holy Empire. The war erupted with the Dragonian Emperor, the 7 saints, the Beast King and the fairies and elves trying their very best to defeat the 7 princes of the Abyssal realm. It was a futile display, they couldn't do anything to defeat them. But there was a solution. The Dragonian Emperor sacrificed a huge amount of his mana to cast a strong seal on the Abyssal realm with the help of the 7 saints, but sadly it came at a huge price. The Dragonian Emperor lost his life when the seal was casted. The demons and devils were vanquished to the Abyssal realm, but the earth was left in peril, landscapes destroyed, waters corrupted, kingdoms in ruin and many lost lives. The world was in a state of peace once and for all, but at what cost? Centuries went by and the Earth realm went back to how it was before the invasion. The Holy Empire was rebuilt and it became the focal point of the world. The descendants of the Dragonian Emperor now rule over the dragon nation now known as the Amethystis dynasty, who are respected by all the nations of the world because of their ancestors' great contribution to the war. The Beastmen kingdom, now known as the Veltar Dominion, was thriving. The fairy sanctuary and the elven domain went into seclusion but still keep contact with the outside world. The Amethystis dynasty and the Holy Empire share a close bond with each other. The current ruler of the Dragonian dynasty is Dracovan Amethystis, who is a wise and righteous ruler who loves his people. He is a king with no queen. His right-hand men and nobles always force him to get married, but he refuses on every occasion. I am not interested in things like marriage, I am more focused on the well-being of my people. He is very stubborn. Even his friend Arthur, the king of the Holy Empire, often worry about his marital status, wondering when he plans on finding a wife. The citizens of the Amethystis dynasty were also curious as to why the emperor is without a queen or any concubines. He is not like his predecessors, the people murmured amongst themselves. The emperor was keen on not finding a wife until one fateful day. He was strolling on the hill behind his castle. Running a dynasty is really hard work, not to mention those pesky dukes meddling in my personal life. So what if I don't have a queen? It's not like it's the end of the world. The emperor was murmuring to himself. He then looked up and saw a golden silhouette in the distance. He was curious and began walking over there. When he reached there, he saw a woman so gorgeous that even the angels above would envy her beauty. "How beautiful," he whispered, his gaze fixed upon her as if the world itself had faded away. Suddenly, he dropped to one knee, his voice echoing across the quiet hill. "Marry me." The woman blinked, startled by the emperor's sudden proposal. "I'm sorry, your majesty," she replied gently, her tone calm but firm. Yet, his heart refused to yield. Day after day, the emperor returned to that same hill, each time asking for her hand, each time met with the same quiet refusal. Until one evening, beneath a crimson sky, the mighty Emperor Draconian Amethyst knelt once more, this time pressing his forehead to the earth. "Please," he said, voice trembling with sincerity, "become my wife. I will do anything." The woman's expression softened, moved by his persistence and humility. At last, she nodded, her lips curving into a faint smile. "I am Celestine," she said, extending her hand toward him. Rising to his feet, the Emperor gently took her hand, his eyes gleaming with triumph and warmth. "And I am Draconian Amethyst," he replied with a deep bow. "You have granted me the greatest honor of my life." Draconian didn't waste any time. They got married later that same day. The whole dynasty celebrated the emperor finally finding an empress. He held a huge banquet inviting the kings of the Holy Empire, the Veltar Dominion, the Elven Domain and the queen of the fairy sanctuary. They all congratulated the emperor. The ruler of the Veltar Dominion, however, was teasing the emperor. "It took you this long to find a wife, you lizard." The emperor snapped back and said, "At least I'm not a man whore, you furball." They both grinned at each other, but it wasn't a friendly exchange. A year later the empress gave birth to a child. It was a boy with violet hair with a golden hue halfway down, golden pupils that shine like the sun and violet sclera that glisten like amethyst crystals. His name was Draziel Estella Amethystus, the first prince of the Amethystus dynasty and the child whose birth would shake the heavens. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Dragon Prince. The birth of an heir to the dynasty was celebrated by all the citizens of the Dragon Nation. It was a beautiful baby boy who inherited his mother's looks. He was often mistaken as a girl by the elders, maids and guards of the castle. Growing up, Draziel wasn't disrespectful towards his people, unlike most children of high-ranking noble families. He commanded elegance, which he gained praise for by his father and elders of the castle. When he turned 5 years old he had a tendency to sneak out of the castle and walk amongst the commoners. On one of his ventures he heard loud noises coming from the Colosseum that is used for duels and tournaments. "I wonder what's going in there." Intrigued, he went in to see what was happening. The crowd roared like thunder as two figures stood in the center of the massive Colosseum, their scales shimmering under the sun. One was a towering dragonian clad in obsidian armor, his aura radiating heat so intense the air wavered. Blaze mana crackled around him, Lord Varian, a veteran warrior known for his destructive power. Facing him was Sir Kale, a lean, silver-haired dragonian whose wings glimmered like steel. His calm demeanor contrasted the raging inferno before him. Aqua mana rippled around his body, coiling like serpents ready to strike. From the stands, young Draziel leaned forward, golden eyes wide with excitement. His small hands gripped the stone railing tightly. He could feel their power vibrating in his bones. "Begin." Varian moved first. The ground shattered under his feet as he lunged forward, his fist engulfed in fire. Kale slid sideways, the flames missing by inches, and countered with a sweeping arc of pressurized water. The blast collided with Varian's chest, steam bursting into the air with a deafening hiss. "Is that all you've got?" Varian roared, grinning like a maniac. His wings flared open, launching him skyward before crashing down with a flaming kick. Kale blocked with crossed arms, but the impact sent cracks rippling through the stone beneath him. He slid backward, his boots grinding against the arena floor. In the same motion, he raised both hands. The moisture in the air condensed into spears of water that fired upward like arrows. The crowd erupted. Fire and water clashed mid-air, creating explosions of steam and light. The pressure made even the spectators shield their eyes. Draziel, however, didn't blink once. His heart was racing, his body trembling, not with fear, but with exhilaration. He whispered to himself, voice trembling with wonder. "So this is power." Kale suddenly spun, his tail whipping through the mist. It struck Varian's ribs, sending him skidding backward. Before Varian could recover, Kale dashed in, water swirling around his arm, and landed a clean hit to the chest. "Yield, Varian." Varian laughed, coughing smoke. "Not bad, but not enough." His body flared with crimson light, scales glowing like molten rock. The arena floor started melting around his feet. But before either could deliver the finishing blow, BOOOOM, the judge's barrier activated, separating the two with a blinding flash. The match was called a draw. The audience cheered wildly, chanting both names. Draziel stood frozen, eyes glinting like stars. Something deep within him stirred, a feeling that would never fade. The urge to fight, to dominate, to see that same power in his own hands. He smiled, the corners of his lips curling with excitement. "One day, I'll stand there too." After the duel Draziel stormed into the grand hall, his eyes blazing with determination. "Father," he said, his voice firm despite his young age, teach me how to fight. I want to become strong, stronger than anyone in this kingdom. His father, the Dragon Emperor, sat upon his throne and regarded him with faint amusement before letting out a deep laugh. Power, you say? You're far too young to be demanding such things. Draziel clenched his fists, refusing to lower his gaze. Age doesn't matter when one has the will to rise. The Emperor's smirk faded into a look of contemplation before he waved his hand dismissively. Very well then, if you seek strength, begin with knowledge. Scholars will tutor you in our history, strategy, and laws. Power without wisdom is nothing but chaos. Draziel bit his lip in frustration, yet he bowed. In that moment, he swore that no lesson, no matter how tedious, would stop him from reaching the strength he desired. The next day, scholars from the dynasty were tasked to teach Draziel on the history and power of the Earth realm. His first lesson was about the races that inhabit the Earth and how each of them utilize mana. Dragonians. Mana source. Their dragon heart, a specialized organ that stores mana like a reactor. Control style. Internalized, they enhance their body, scales, and aura rather than relying on chance. Advantages. Exceptional mana density. Even young dragonians can match human masters. Natural resistance to elemental attacks. Their dragon rage temporarily multiplies mana flow, but risks mana burnout or rampage. Signature trait. Frenzy mode. Glowing marks that appear when mana surges, enhancing both power and intimidation. Specialization. Physical reinforcement, destruction spells and increased speed. Fairies. Mana source. The spirit core, connected directly to nature's ley lines. Control style. Flowing and instinctive, they sing to mana rather than command it. Advantages. Unmatched mana recovery. Natural mana springs replenish them. Can merge with natural elements, become invisible in forests or air. Fairy dust acts as crystallized mana for enchantments. Signature trait. Mana bloom. Their mana fluctuates with emotion, allowing sudden bursts of power. Specialization. Enchantments, illusions, environmental control. Elves. Mana source. Mana circuits refined through meditation and longevity. Control style. Structured, precision over brute force. Advantages. High efficiency, waste almost no mana when casting. Their long life allows centuries of refinement. Signature trait. Arcane threads, fine mana strings used for high-level spells and weapon control. Specialization. Elemental arts, binding magic, long-range combat. Beastmen. Mana source. The primal core, linked to instinct. Control style. Instinctive, flows best through movement and emotion, similar to martial arts. Advantages. Explosive mana surges during combat. Strong affinity for transformation and enhancement spells. Signature trait. Feral pulse, their heartbeat synchronizes with their mana, multiplying agility and perception. Specialization. Close combat, aura claws, sensory enhancement. Humans. Mana source. Soul vein, the most unstable type. Control style. Learned, through scrolls, sigils, and training. Advantages. Extremely adaptable, can mimic any race's technique to some degree. Often develop unique sub-branches of magic, runes, alchemy, tech. Signature trait. Resonant evolution. Under pressure, a human's mana capacity can expand exponentially. Specialization. Versatile, from knights to scholars. Interesting, so almost anyone can wield magic, Draziel said. Yes, with enough practice, one can even heighten their lifespan the stronger they become, the scholar replied. So tell me, what were those people in the Colosseum doing? I saw them using fire and water like it was nothing, Draziel asked. You must be referring to the elements, my lord, said the scholar. Elements? Draziel became even more curious. Tell me, what are elements? The old scholar adjusted his spectacles and smiled at the young prince's question. Elements, my lord, are the very essence of nature's power. Every warrior, mage, and creature draws strength from one or more of them. He raised his hand, letting faint sparks of mana flicker between his fingers. There are 5 primary elements: blaze, the flame that burns with destruction and passion; bolt, the lightning that embodies speed and precision; aqua, the water that flows with adaptability and healing; storm, the force of wind and thunder that commands the skies; and finally, divine, a sacred element restricted only to celestial beings such as the angelic vessels. It is said that those who wield divine power act as the will of the heavens themselves. Draziel's eyes widened with fascination, a fire igniting within him as he imagined mastering all of them someday. Draziel leaned forward eagerly, his eyes gleaming. So, which one do you think'll have? The scholar chuckled softly at the boy's impatience. That, young prince, is something not even I can tell. Your true affinities will only be revealed when you undergo the affinity test at the Dragon Temple. The ancient stones there react to your very soul. He paused, studying Draziel's confident grin. However, the scholar continued, if I were to guess, I'd say you might inherit blaze, bolt, and storm, the same elements your father commands. Fire for his might, lightning for his speed, and storm for his unshakable will. Draziel smirked proudly, clenching his small fists. Then I'll master them all, and surpass even father. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 Awakening. The day had finally come, the day every young dragonian waited for with burning anticipation. At 10 years old, one could finally step into the Dragon Temple and awaken their true affinity. To the dragonians, this was more than just a ceremony, it was a sacred passage that defined their destiny, shaping the path of their cultivation and power for centuries to come. The temple itself stood at the heart of the Amethyst dynasty, a towering structure carved into a mountain of violet crystal, its spires reaching toward the heavens as if yearning to touch the divine realm itself. Inside, the air thrummed with ancient energy. 4 colossal statues, dragons of flame, water, lightning, and storm rested upon stone pedestals, each exuding an overwhelming aura. This was the chamber where legends were born. Draziel Estella Amethystus, heir to the dynasty, stood before them. His violet hair shimmered faintly under the temple's radiant glow, and his golden pupils flickered like twin suns. Though young, there was a composure about him that seemed far too mature for his age, a mix of arrogance and divine confidence that marked him as different. The attendants, priests, and nobles who filled the chamber watched with bated breath. Some whispered prayers, others exchanged looks of envy and awe. After all, he was not just any dragonian, he was the son of Emperor Dracovan and Empress Celestine, the child born from both dragon and divine blood. Go on, young prince, the high priest urged, bowing deeply. Place your hand upon the altar and let your soul resonate with the dragons. Draziel's expression was calm but sharp. He walked forward, each step echoing through the silent temple. When his hand met the cold stone of the altar, a faint ripple of mana surged outward, yet the statues stood still. No roar, no light, nothing. The bystanders began to murmur. What's happening? One of the nobles whispered. Even the weakest of bloodlines elicit a spark. Could it be that the young prince has no affinity? Another said in disbelief. Draziel's brow furrowed. No affinity. Him. The thought itself was an insult. He clenched his fist and poured more of his mana into the altar, refusing to believe it. Still, silence. The statues loomed before him like indifferent gods. The high priest hesitated, unsure whether to speak, but before he could, the air in the temple shifted. A low hum filled the chamber. The ground trembled, and then, with a thunderous boom, the ceiling of the temple split open as light flooded in from the heavens. Everyone shielded their eyes. The sky above the Amethyst dynasty tore open, revealing a cosmic rift swirling with divine power. From within it, 6 colossal dragons emerged, each one so massive that their presence alone made the earth quake. The first dragon's scales burned crimson like molten fire, the flame sovereign. The second shimmered like an endless ocean, the aqua tyrant. The third crackled with blinding violet lightning, the bolt emperor. The fourth gleamed in pure white, its wings trailing gusts of wind, the storm monarch. The fifth radiated a golden brilliance that burned the eyes, the divine dragon. And finally, the sixth descended last, far larger, far older, its scales reflecting the endless night sky filled with glimmering stars. The star dragon, the ancient one spoken of only in myths. Every dragon bowed its head toward Draziel. The nobles dropped to their knees, trembling in disbelief. It can't be, all 6. Someone cried. The priests prostrated themselves, chanting prayers they had not spoken in centuries. Even the skies over the dynasty roared as thunder and light filled the horizon. Draziel's eyes widened not in fear, but in something primal. His blood burned, his body trembled as if his very soul was being torn open. He could feel their power. The dragons circled him, roaring in unison, a sound so mighty that the mountains themselves cracked. Then, one after another, they unleashed their essence, surging toward Draziel in streams of elemental energy. Fire, water, lightning, storm, divinity and starlight. The world held its breath. Draziel fell to one knee, his hair whipping wildly in the storm of energy surrounding him. Every nerve in his body screamed in both pain and exhilaration. He wanted to roar and so he did. The roar that escaped his throat wasn't human, it was draconic, deep and resonant, shaking the heavens. The 6 dragons answered, roaring back before their bodies dissolved into radiant light that entered Draziel's body. When the light faded, silence blanketed the temple. Smoke rose from the altar, and in the center stood Draziel, his eyes glowing with 6 swirling colors, his aura radiating such pressure that even the elders struggled to breathe. His power had awakened, no, been chosen. The high priest fell to his knees, trembling. The 6 affinities, impossible, it hasn't happened since the first emperor. Draziel stood tall, breathing heavily, a faint smirk forming on his lips. He looked at his trembling hands, feeling the divine and draconic energies surging through him, and for the first time, even he seemed unsure whether to laugh or to roar. Then, with a low chuckle, he looked to the heavens and said, "Hey, so even the heavens bow before me." The crowd erupted in cheers and cries of awe, and from that day forward, the name Draziel Estella Amethystis was etched into legend. The world was silent, the energy in the air crackled, shimmering like a storm trapped between heaven and earth. When the final echo of the dragon's roar faded, all eyes turned toward the boy who now stood at the center of the dragon temple, Draziel Estella Amethystis, heir to the Amethystis dynasty. He was breathing heavily, the air around him warping with sheer power. His violet hair, now streaked with shimmering gold, drifted as if touched by celestial winds. His eyes had changed completely, 6 colors swirled within them: crimson flame, azure sea, violet lightning, white gale, golden divinity, and starry black. His aura no longer belonged to a mortal or even a dragonian, it felt like something born of heaven itself. Outside the temple, the entire dynasty could see the spectacle unfold. The sky above was painted with 6 dragons circling the capital, each roaring once before dissolving into light. The citizens fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the divine sight. Priests wept, elders trembled, and even battle-hardened soldiers found themselves whispering prayers of awe. Atop the balcony of the royal palace stood Emperor Dracovan Amethystis, the Dragon King himself. His piercing gaze softened as he looked upon the temple in the distance, where his eldest son's power illuminated the heavens. "So, the blood of dragons and divinity truly merged," he said quietly, his voice thick with pride and disbelief. His aura flared unconsciously, a mighty golden pressure that swept across the capital, but for once, it wasn't to assert dominance. It was the instinctive release of a father overwhelmed with pride. Behind him, Empress Celestine stood with her hand over her heart, her radiant golden eyes glimmering with tears. "Our son, he has awakened all 6 affinities," she whispered. A soft, divine light emanated from her, resonating faintly with the celestial energy coming from the temple. The heavens themselves have recognized him. Beside her were 3 young children, each watching their older brothers awakening with wide eyes. Cynthia, the first daughter and second-born, clutched her mother's robe tightly. Her silver hair shimmered softly as she whispered, "Big brother is glowing." Her younger brother, Drake, who already showed signs of inheriting their father's draconic strength, grinned with admiration. "He's so cool, I wanna be like him when I'm older," he shouted, his small dragon wings fluttering with excitement. But it was Drazara, the youngest, who was silent. Her eyes, a strange blend of violet and blue, gleamed with curiosity beyond her years. She tilted her head and murmured softly, "Brother, feels different now. He's shining like the stars." Celestine smiled faintly, brushing the little girl's hair. "He carries a burden the world itself may not yet understand." Back in the temple, the onlookers could no longer contain themselves. The high priest's voice trembled as he prostrated himself before Draziel. "The heavens have chosen their vessel. All hail the heir of 6 affinities, the dragon of the stars." The crowd echoed his cry, their voices thundering through the temple halls. The nobles bowed deeply, their arrogance shattered by the divine pressure radiating from the young prince. Even the most prideful dragonian warriors knelt, trembling in reverence. Draziel, however, stood motionless. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. The sensation coursing through him was intoxicating, the elements themselves obeyed his will, dancing like servants eager to please their master. He raised his hand, and sparks of flame, water, and lightning coiled around his fingers before fading away. His lips curled into a confident smirk, the kind that would one day make kingdoms tremble. He looked toward the heavens through the hole in the temple's ceiling, his voice calm yet filled with untamed pride. "So this is the will of the dragons, huh? Then I'll carve my name across the stars themselves." A silence fell before the high priest finally found his voice. "Your Majesty," he said, addressing Emperor Dracovan, who had entered the temple in a burst of golden light, Celestine and the children following behind. "Your son, he has awakened something that has not been seen since the age of myths. 6 affinities and one beyond the heavens." Dracovan stepped forward, his gaze firm yet proud. No, he said with a faint smile, resting a hand on Draziel's shoulder. He has not just awakened the power of dragons. He has awakened the legacy of both heaven and earth. Celestine's soft laughter echoed through the grand hall as she looked at her son. Our little star, she said tenderly. At that moment, the temple bells began to ring across the dynasty, a sound reserved for divine omens. The people flooded the streets, cheering, crying, and shouting the name of their new legend. From that day onward, stories spread like wildfire. The tale of the boy blessed by 6 dragons, the heir who would one day conquer the heavens themselves. And under the fractured sky that still shimmered with starlight, Draziel stood tall, the faintest smile curling his lips as his golden pupils gleamed. The world, he whispered, is far too small for me.